have Blanca with us today. Hello, it's Dr. Patt with Little Critters, and we have Blanca here today. She's a 27-year-old umbrella cockatoo, and Blanca is in today because she is due for a Superlorin injection. Have you heard of Superlorin? Do you know what it is or what it's used for? We'll go through that. Blanca has a history of being spayed at another hospital many years ago, and after she was spayed, she continued to have hormonal behavior. Have you ever had a cockatoo? Do you know if they're hormonal? How can you tell? What do they do? Typically, cockatoos are little bundles of hormones. They're a wonderful bird, but umbrellas are often thought of as the chickens in the parrot world because they will lay eggs and reproduce very prolifically. And they're very emotional birds who love to be cuddled and scratched and held by their owners and will bond strongly with their owners, and then think that should stimulate reproductive behavior in them. And the problem with reproductive behavior in cockatoos is they will strain, and as they're straining, so they'll posture, they'll flatten their wings, they'll lift their tail, and they'll strain their cloaca. And when they're doing this, it's actually leading to a prolapse of the cloaca. And it's stretching and dilating it, and over time they have chronic prolapses where they're literally falling out through their cloaca. And this is a very common problem in cockatoos. She did have reproductive surgery with a reduction in her cloaca, or a tightening of the cloaca, again by another hospital several years ago. And unfortunately that didn't resolve the problem, which is pretty common in these guys. And she does have some fecal incontinence or some leaking now that the owners are dealing with. And she continues to have the hormonal behavior. In spite of being spayed, they still have hormones that they produce, and it'll create the same behaviors. And so we use Superlorin in these birds. We used to use Lupron quite a bit years ago, but now we use the Superlorin implant. And that implant is just injected under the skin, and some people will inject it in the muscle, in the breast, or under the skin over the back. And it looks like a little rice grain, and it slowly dissolves over time, but while it's present, it's actually suppressing her hormones because she has a hormone problem. And it's suppressing a lot of the hormones and the behaviors. And some of the behaviors can be very destructive behaviors in addition to the straining and the prolapse. You can see that she feather picks, she does chew on her ankle a bit. And I've seen much more severe cases where they're stressed, they're frustrated, and they act out. It is very important to suppress these behaviors. You also have to do environmental control and owner control. And so what that means is you don't want to pet them over their back or under their wings, because this is mating behavior and it will stimulate more hormones. So you really should be focusing only on petting the head so that you're not creating the problem. You also want to control the light cycle, so we don't want them up all night because we're often up very late in the night, which is extending their daylight hours. And that puts them in springtime or breeding mode. So it's much better to have a very dedicated day-night cycle and a cage in a night room that's totally dark and quiet, so they're not sleep deprived and not stimulating hormones. And then in addition, we should be doing foraging activities with these guys for environmental enrichment, stimulating their brain, focusing on other activities. But the Superlorin is often a lifesaver in many of these birds with very severe problems. So we often augment all of the environmental modifications with something like a Superlorin injection. So we're going to be doing that today for this beautiful little girl.